G'day everyone, welcome to the 10th round of the Assetto Corsa Aussie Down Under Series for 2020. It's the last race of 2020 before we have the extended Christmas break and pick the series up again at the beginning of January 2021. This event marks the two-thirds distance of the season, and with 5 rounds to go when we pick up the action again in January, the finishing order of tonight's race will be very important as to who carries the momentum through the Christmas break, and then more importantly, who can pick it up and run with it when we get back to racing in the new year. It's the third round to feature a different form of daylight. Bathurst was a twilight event. The last round at Singapore was a night race, and we move from the Asian region all the way to the Middle East to the Bahrain International Circuit for another race under lights. Thanks for joining Outworld Broadcasting's stream of this series. My name is Steve DeVries. The usual person who sits opposite me in commentary, and Lewis Wedding, I believe, has just stepped away for a few moments to sort out a couple of things. But we have got a guest with us tonight, one of the drivers who has unfortunately had a little bit of bad luck go his way in the last week or so with his sim rig, and that is the driver of the number 35 VL Commodore in this series, in Dane Liccardo. Welcome, mate.
Thank you for having me tonight, Nether. It's a pleasure to be here.
Give us a quick rundown, mate. What happened to you in the last week or so since Singapore? I believe you've actually had a bit of a wheel drama with your sim rig.
Yes, I was mucking around on iRacing, doing some fun races with a couple of the boys, and just tensed up and grabbed the wheel on the encoder, and it snapped clean in half.
Wow. So that's the encoder from the G27 series of wheels, isn't it? The Logitech G27.
Yes, I've done the impossible and broken the indestructible.
Yeah, they are. Those wheels are actually pretty bulletproof. So I've got one of them myself, and they are pretty difficult to ruin, I must admit. So you've done well there to do that. I'm very impressed.
Yes, it's not the best thing to be impressing people with, but it is somewhat impressing people, which I'm happy with.
Yeah, I think a few people have remarked that you've done it yourself a pretty big thing there. And on top of that, I believe you've actually got a new wheel not too far away as well. So that'd be good to
Yes.
see back out on track in the next couple of weeks, hopefully.
Yeah, it's killing me not being out on track and helping out everyone.
Well, we'll look forward to seeing when you get back out there in the near future, mate. And it looks like Lewis Wedding may have just jumped into the general chat just to have a quick listen to anything that's going on in the pre-drivers briefing before we get underway tonight. But season calendar,
There's a possibility.
there is.
There's a possibility he could be racing tonight.
Yeah, there is a possibility actually. I've actually given him carte blanche if he wanted to race, given the numbers are a little bit on the low side. Then I said to him, "Go nuts! I'm more than happy for him to have a run around and have a night off." Because let's face it, with some of the work that he's done, especially with Automobilista Australia, he deserves it. Let's have a look.
And she does.
Let's have a look at the season calendar as it stands. So we're through the first 9 rounds, all tick boxes next to those events there. Bahrain tonight is the last event of the 2020 part of the season, as we said just a few moments ago. And then on the other side, on the new year, we've got 5 races in 5 weeks. So Calder Park, Sandown, Lakeside, Winton and Newcastle, the 5 races remaining after tonight. All of the races from this point on are the same dual race format that we've enjoyed for the majority of the season, with a single exception being the Bathurst round, which was a single 30-lap encounter. Point standings coming into tonight. Been a little bit of movement, but not a huge amount. Just a couple of drivers swapping positions. So Shannon Wright extended his lead at the top of the point standings after last week. So he's really starting to run away with this championship, carrying all the momentum each and every week that we see him out on track. He's only missed a couple of races and never been off the podium. Nathan Higginson, who has had his time in the lead of this championship, still mathematically within earshot, as is yourself, Dane, but obviously with your wheel drama is just a little bit further behind. Jamie Nankervis is out there tonight. Looks like he will unfortunately leapfrog you in the point standings after tonight, but Terry Marwood's not out there, so he appears not to be able to jump you at this particular point. John Wright, Termo, Brett Willis, Dylan Call, and Brian Munn rounding out the top 10, with Brett Willis jumping into the top 10 at the expense of Scott Nolan, who we've been informed during the week will no longer be contesting the series. So the couple of rounds that he did contest in the early going back at Simmons Plains, where he had a pair of wins, and Barbagallo, where he also podiumed a third and a second, they were his only 2 rounds for the year. Let's have a look at the race information for tonight's races, and it is the Bahrain International Circuit. It is the Grand Prix layout that we've come to know over the last, what is it now? 16 years, believe it or not, since this circuit was introduced back in 2004. The layout that has been most commonly used, with the exception being the endurance circuit, which came into existence a little while into I think it was the 2012 or 2011 Formula One season. It only lasted a year and was then given its marching orders. I believe that circuit's actually going to make a return next week in the second of the double headers for the Formula One Grand Prix that are there this weekend. It's ironic, Dane, that we're actually racing at the same circuit that the Formula Ones are racing at this weekend. It's a bit of an unusual anomaly. Oop. Dane's just looks like he's very quickly dropped out for a second.
Sorry, I dropped out.
That's all right. I was just saying that it's a bit of an anomaly that we're racing at the same circuit tonight for Assetto Corsa Aussie Down Under Series that has been it's being run at tonight in the Formula One this weekend.
Yes, it is.
And that's all there is to it. It's something that we don't sort of see a lot of nowadays. But this circuit, the 5.4 kilometre, 15 corner layout, the usual format of qualifying being 20 minutes. And a race length of 2 lots of 15 laps. The same lap count that we ran at Singapore just the other week. Now just waiting for a little bit of on-track action to get underway, and then we will be right to go. So the countdown timer for the end of practice is just expiring on the other side of the screen, and then we'll have a bit of a look at who is out on track, and all in search of the pole positions that are available, because it's a reverse grid pole for race 1. Reverse grid pole for race 2, and pole position being determined for race 1 as a result of qualifying, which is just starting to get underway. Now, the favourite, I guess, has always been Shannon Wright, but he's under a bit of siege, Dano.
Yes.
Nathan Higginson was relatively quick and not too far off Shannon Wright's time coming out of the practice session.
Yes. With these VLs, they're pretty quick around in the straight lines, but they do have a bit of a lackluster cornering ability, I guess, which is where the Volvo excels. It's going to be interesting tonight, I guess, especially in qualifying. See what happens.
Well, it's only a small field that's out there at the moment. As we said, it's just the, what have we got here? It's just the 8 cars by the look of it. If Lewis Wedding is going to get out there and do a bit of racing. So, men out there at the moment, Shannon Wright and his namesake John Wright. Nathan Higginson's out there, so too is Jamie Nankervis. Brett Willis has just jumped in the last few minutes aboard his Volvo. Dylan Call on screen at the moment in the Tirana, and then Ozrob in the BMW 635 CSI. Likewise, Lewis Weddings jumped into the BMW. There is a broadcast car that's out there, and Outwell Broadcasting sponsorship on that BMW, and he'll turn up on your timing screen on the left-hand side as a broadcaster, because that's the way that his name's been given in the game, but we'll just have to remember that that's Lewis aboard that car. Now, just trying to get an idea of where everybody is on the track at the moment. So Dylan is just down at the bottom end of the circuit. So he's down at turn number 11. I believe that is down there. Yeah, he's rounded there, and now he's rounding, I guess, the hard part of the circuit to get right There's some long sweeping right-handers and a lot of braking while turning, and you can see there the back just starting to step out as he tries to get on the power a little bit too early for this run down to the final 2 corners. All right, we might stay with Dylan Call for this one. He's come off the final corner. Let's go on board and see if we can get a little bit of an insight. Oh, not from that angle. That's a bit of a difficult one to look at. Let's see if we can go from the... find a better camera. There we go. Over the left-hand shoulder. That's not too bad. So, spot your braking marker coming into the hardest braking spot on the circuit, which is turn 1. Hairpin, or sort of a semi-hairpin to the right. Inconsequential corner at turn 2. Pretty much don't notice it's really there because you're on the gas immediately after getting out of turn 1, and then turn 3 again, not an inconsequential corner. Pretty much is taken flat out. Down the gears for another hard stop. Turn 4. There's actually plenty of room on the exit there. You can see the racing line and the rubber marks goes all the way out to the left-hand side. Dylan leaving plenty of margin on the table and getting your line right through these downhill S's in approaching another hard stop for turn 8, which is a 180 degree hairpin. Little bit of opposite lock there for Dylan. And again on the power, up and over the rise, and this really tricky approach. You want to be approaching it from the right hand side, and Dylan's got a big fistful opposite lock there as he goes through 9 and then gets into turn 10, and he's got a car behind him and he's just letting go through a minute. There's Lewis Wedding aboard the Outworld Broadcasting machine. Now down to turn 11. Again, pick your braking point. Get the car turned in, and then you've got to start to pick up the throttle nice and gently. And constant radius corner, constantly turning. Feathering the throttle, coming through turn 12. And again, this really tricky approach to turn 13. Braking in a straight line, but then got to work out when to pick this throttle up. Got to be really careful. And then a big run down the second last straight towards the last 2 turns. Again, braking for turn 14. And then you'll see there's this little kink to the right here, which is classed as turn 15. Again, you really don't notice it. You really don't think it even exists. And the start-finish line comes up pretty quick. There it is there. Dylan Call sets a 225.4. So at the moment, as we look for our corrected onboard cameras, Nathan Higginson with the big moment for Nathan Higginson. Sorry for Higginson, for Dylan Call. Just a little bit of a loose going into the final start complex corners. There's Nathan Higginson on the screen. 212.549 is not too far shy, Dane, of the time he set in practice, which was about 0.2 of a second quicker.
That is correct. I spoke to Nathan prior to the qualifying. He's going to have a real dip tonight, so hopefully we see some good results for Nathan tonight.
Well, the one thing I think he needs to do a little bit better than what he's done in the recent past if it comes to having a dip is he needs to be able to keep the car pointing the right direction. We've seen a little bit of a flamboyant driving style from him from time to time. Likes to get the back out sideways, and sometimes we keep mentioning that he's got a role model in one Brenton Foley from AMS Oz that he's trying to emulate. And if you can keep the car pointing the right direction in a circuit like this, watch how he gets on the power out of some of these corners. I reckon he's definitely in with a shake.
Yeah, exactly. Look, I feel like this track is you have to have your lines perfect, otherwise you're going to get a really bad run out of the corner, and that's going to be most likely detrimental to your whole lap for qualifying, and that's going to play a big role in qualifying.
Well, playing a big role, I guess, is the straightaway speed as well that the VL has over a number of its rivals. We talked earlier about the difference in some of the car performances. The VL having straight line advantage, but not very good through the turns. The Volvo being sort of a real all-rounder, not having the same its top end speed as the VL does, but is able to make up for its lack of straight line speed through its cornering abilities. You're obviously piloted the VL for a while.
Yes.
What's the key to actually getting a good lap time with the VL outside of the straightaway pace? We know you've got to get on the power at precisely the right time to minimise your wheel spin and make sure you get the maximum straight line speed out of the car, but what's it like to try and make these cars turn, because they're big, heavy Australian machinery?
Yes, probably the most important thing is getting your camber and toe correct. They play in tire pressures. They play a huge role in this. If you get them wrong, your car's going to either understeer or or oversteer if you get it that bad. Myself and Nathan have been working on how to getting the car to turn in. Unfortunately, I couldn't help him this week, but Nathan says pretty happy with his car, which I reckon's going to be good for him tonight, as the car is very pointy, he said to me.
So what sort of tips and tricks have you guys been working on at some of the previous tracks? You've been using things like curbs to help turn the car, or braking earlier and turning in earlier. What sort of things have you had to work through? What challenges have you faced in trying to make this car as competitive as it can be up against the likes of Shannon Wright and the Volvos?
Believe it or not, it's doing the complete opposite to what you'd normally do with these cars. Like, say you'd soften up the car and handle better. For some reason, with these VLs, they handle better stiffer. But it's based on track to track. But say for a track like this, it probably work better very much as a stiffer vehicle.
Well, he's just done a pretty decent job there. He's lowered the benchmark to a 212.453, so and he's just overshot the braking zone at turn 1. But he'll gather that up and get going again. He's still got half the qualifying session still to go. I think he might have been on for a slightly better time there. I was just keeping an eye out for what he was up to, and he did have a moment where he got a little bit sideways. I think it was off of turn 10 and lost a little bit of time, so that time could have been a little bit better. The man who's sorry, I spoke over the top of you. Go on.
Yeah, I was going to say Nathan's likes to have a dip, as I said earlier. He's very confident around with this car and this track, so not to mention so is Shannon, which I'm surprised. I thought Shannon would be a lot closer to Nathan at this point in time in qualifying.
Well, you speak about him being closer. He's just edged a little bit closer. 213 flat, still half a second shy. Did see him with a 212.2, I believe, in the practice session just gone before tonight's broadcast. So he's definitely got it in him. Maybe it might have been a lap that he was just able to string all those perfect sectors together. Race pace, we're not quite 100% sure what they're up to, although we can see here he's aborting his next lap around.
Yeah, well, maybe he's just not comfortable with the car at the moment. Maybe something's changed between practice and qualifying and he's not happy with the way the car's handling.
It wouldn't surprise me to see a few drivers making a couple of changes to the race car as the night wears on. Well, that's a very early turn in for Brett Willis. It takes a bit of a different line, and I think he knows he's made a bit of a moment there, and he's aborted that one.
A big thing as well with the VLs is a setup from practice to the qualifying to the race. Say for last week at Singapore, it differed so much with the setup.
Talking about it from a track evolution point of view, or just a race-to-race thing, or or more of a learning thing?
I guess it's more of a learning thing and the weight of the fuel. Because personally, I run not a lot of fuel in the car. So when I run the race setup and qualifying, the car's just incredibly oversteery. It's got none of that weight over the rear wheels. Which is, speaking of the wheels, we can't use soft tyres because they overheat, which is a huge advantage that the Volvos have over us VLs.
Yeah, the Volvos being a little bit of a lighter car, they're able to control their weight a little bit better, so the soft tyres are a huge advantage to them. I believe in most cases we've seen you on the mediums. Oh, big moment for Ozrob, big Larry moment for Ozrob coming through turn 12, and that puts pay to his lap there. So he just got a little bit greedy and carried a bit too much speed through turn 12. That was enough to upset the balance of the BMW.
Very easy to do in these cars as they don't have much aero and not much grip.
Yeah. Well, this is from a time where the cars were very much tyre grip or mechanical grip dependent. Not a lot of aero to be seen. And I know there's a couple of cars in the pack that do have the wings on them. The VL, of course, has the Walkinshaw body kit with the rear wing. The Volvo's got a small rear wing. This one that we're looking at here, John writes, yeah, it's like a lip. It's almost like a NASCAR style rear wing where it just comes up from the deck lid and it's not very tall. NASCAR ones actually used to be quite large. I think they were up to about 4 or 5 inches tall at one point, and they've actually been paring them back over the course of the last couple of years. Same as what a lot of series have been doing in efforts to claw back downforce. They've tried to find ways to cut it down, try and close up the racing in some of the series. But yeah, I think the BMW goes, the BMW rear wing almost looks like it's pretty much a factory thing, but they obviously didn't make any changes between putting the cars into a race configuration. John's just overshooting the marks on a couple of occasions here.
That's exactly what the VL is. It's pretty much what they saw on the racetrack is pretty much exactly what you could buy from the showroom, other than your typical race modifications like your race seat, strip interior, and roll cage. Maybe an engine thing here and there. It's pretty much you bought a race car.
Yeah, you're spot on. And on top of that, it was back in the day where they had the mentality in the showrooms of the win on Sunday, sell on Monday. So Holden, Ford, all the BMW, all of them went racing solely for the purpose of putting their mark on the Sunday night news and then hoping it was going to bring in the punters to sign up to buy a new car first thing Monday morning. So it was all about the sales-driven thing. It's a much more different type of mentality now. A lot of manufacturers go racing and they actually learn a lot from racing, and things end up in their production cars that you can buy off the showroom floors. So the likes of Mercedes with such things as their safety innovations, as well as things like hybrid systems that are all starting to become mainstream in a lot of cars now, and it's all because they've learnt it, because they've had to develop it deliberately for a racing application. And it doesn't take long for those sorts of things to filter down to a more mainstream end user market.
It is, exactly.
Just under 5 minutes remaining here. Still Nathan Higginson heads the way, and there's a moment for, who's that one there? That's Jamie Nankervis going deep at turn 10. Another one of the parts of the circuit that's very easy to get wrong. Ozrob just moves up the order. He's just crossed the line and gone up to position 3, having improved his time. We just saw him with a spin at turn 12 a couple of minutes ago. He's gathered himself up, put himself into contention. Let's see how Lewis Wedding's going here, Dano. What do you reckon he's up to? He's hanging it out on the ragged edge, I think, at the moment.
Yes, I don't know much about the BMW, but knowing Lewis, he'll get some godlike time out of that as we go. He goes up to P3. As I say that, the man can drive. I'll give him that.
Man, this man can drive anything we put him into. Although there's a big lock up there on the inside right front, but it actually didn't hamper the car too badly. He was able to get a late turn in for turn 1. We don't have the benefit of sector times, unfortunately, so we really can't see what this sector time is going to be. Sector 1 will come up just on the other side of turn 4 as he starts to go down the S's. Oh, he's really pushing it. He's having a dip. It's the usual phrase.
Yeah,
he's had a big dip. And
yes.
yep.
Oh, no.
That's a big one.
Yes.
That,
I'd say he's pushing it a bit too hard, which I'm very guilty of.
Yes, and I think there's you're not the only one I think that's guilty of doing that. I put my hand up in that sort of statement and say, yep, I'm also guilty as charged for having a bit too big a crack at things sometimes. And look, who can blame him? It's qualifying. He's got another attempt to go out. If he leaves the pit lane now, he will get another lap in.
Yeah. While we are in the last 3 minutes qualifying, a lot of the action comes in the last, say, 2.5 minute and a half with this series. Like, say, right now, Shannon's in second, 5/10 behind Nathan. From what it's happened to me as well. To me, he's pipped me in the last few seconds. So we'll never know what comes with Shannon.
Yeah, very capable driver, Shannon Wright. At the moment, 2:13.0 is his best. And there's Lewis Wedding in behind Nathan Higginson. Nathan likes to run the lights. I know he likes to put them on for the whole entire quali session. He doesn't need to have them up and running at the moment, but he's decided to do that. I think there may have been just a slight move. Yeah, so Ozrob's now gone back ahead of Lewis Wedding. So it was Wedding ahead of Ozrob about 2 minutes ago, and he's now switched back around the other way. So the two BMWs pretty well matched. There's Ozrob on his run up to turn 4, and he's got one more lap here, and I reckon he might go close to getting to the line to get another one in, whereas the likes of who's out there on the track at the moment looking for, so John Wright is a bit further behind, so this will probably be his last. Dylan Call is in the pit lane, so he won't be able to leave and get another lap in time. Brett Willis, this will be his last one. Lewis Wedding is on out lap, so that'll be his last one. Shannon Wright, likewise, last lap. And Nathan Higginson on track ahead of... He was ahead of Lewis Wedding. I think he still is. And the answer to that is yes, he is. And he should get around comfortably for another lap. Now, the good thing about this for Nathan Higginson is that if he does get jumped by Shannon Wright in the last on the last lap for Shannon, he can press on and have another crack at getting that one back. But if he doesn't get jumped and he's safe, he doesn't need to do anything.
Exactly. Good show from Nathan tonight. Sorry, Heather.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty impressed with how he's kept the car under control in qualifying so far. He hasn't made too many mistakes. Had a little lock-up moment in a couple of spots, which is not uncommon with the drivers that are out there at the moment. Just about everybody, I think, has made a mistake. A little bit wide of the apex at turn 1 and narrows up his approach for turn 2, so a little bit of something different. So here he goes. He's on his last one. The man behind him, Lewis Wedding, he's on his last one. Shannon Wright's aborted, so he's gone back to the pit lane. So that answers that question. We've got a new pole sitter for tonight. So too, Jamie Nankervis, and also in the lane, Dylan Call, who said didn't make it out for another crack at improving his time.
You never know what could happen. Now, one of these guys could set a blinder and pit Nathan.
Yeah, we just never know. The next man to come to the line to put another time on the board will be Brett Willis, currently in 6th place. Only 6/10 behind Jamie. Is there a late improvement for Brett? Not on this occasion. He manages a 2:15.4 that time around, so his day in his night in qualifying is done. And I think John Wright just did a 2:23, but I think he's across the line and he does not have another lap available to him. So it's just Higginson and Lewis Wedding, I believe. Yep, Ozrob's gone back to the lane, so these guys have got a couple more left in them.
A big thing around this track is the track cuts. When I was doing my practice of my testing on controller, I got a lot of track cuts just from having, say, 2 wheels over the curb, which is very inconsistent with, say, Nathan did it right in front of me and he didn't get a track cut, and I did it. I got a track cut.
So we're about to be looking at places like that, just like actually having all 4 wheels to the back side of the curb, or actually just over the white line.
I'm pretty sure it's just over the white line. But I think also when Lewis was doing his practice, he got a track cut.
All right. We'll have a bit of a look at that and keep an eye on that as the night goes on. So Higginson didn't need to press on, but he did press on, and his last lap was a 2:18.2. So he had that in his back pocket, and that is all she wrote for qualifying. Lewis Wedding didn't improve either. So not a bad change of fortune this time around. A different pole sitter is always welcome. I think we had poles this year. Of course, Shannon Wright's been the dominant man with the qualifying pole position. I believe we had Scott Nolan pick up a couple as well, at least one, in the times that he raced. And of course now we've got Nathan Higginson with one to his name as well. And Terry Marwood had pole position when he was running the VK Commodore all the way back at the very first round in Adelaide.
That feels like a long time ago. While I
That
didn't contest it, I most certainly did watch it.
that feels like an eternity ago. If we go back to the season calendar, you can see how long ago that was. The 19th of September, and we are some 2.5 months removed from that date. So that's a long way ago. And I'm even surprised that I remembered back that far. The only reason I'm looking at how far back we were is I've got the point standings in front of me, which also has the results from that particular week of everybody and where they finished. And Terry Marwood had a first place in that one, and I remember that he had an issue in the second race and ended up having to start from the rear of the grid. Actually, I think he missed the start. He actually started a lap down and carved his way through the field, ending up position number 3 in that second race. Probably one of the best drives I've seen anybody do in a sim racing setup ever. Despite the fact we've seen a few people in AMS Oz come from the rear of the grid in a long distance race and take a win, but to go from a lap down and end up position 3, that was a fantastic drive in that particular race. A couple of comments coming through in the live stream. Looks like there's some support for Nathan Higginson from a couple of people there. NZ Snipes and Roadies Racing he's made a funny comment here. I think this might be related to his a nickname we've seen him have in one of the other Discords. For us, he shows up as Higginson Media, which we know who he is, and a couple of other Discord channels. He shows up as like a Soundboard Junior and Lord something or another. And I had a look earlier, Dana. I'm not sure if do you know the answer as to why he's called Lord Higgledy Piggledy in another one of the Discords? Is there something I'm missing here? No, he's looks like Dane's just stepped away for a few seconds. And I'm not quite 100% sure. Maybe Rhodey, you can potentially fill me out in the live chat, or fill me in rather, as to why he has that nickname. I'm not 100% sure. I only saw that about 30 minutes or so ago, and even now I'm curious as to what it means. We're just in a bit of a holding pattern here while we wait for the countdown timer to continue for the qualifying session just to roll over to a race session. But just to recap the grid order from qualifying as it will stand for race 1. Nathan Higginson and Shannon Wright off of the front row. That'll be an interesting start to see who can get the better jump, because it's quite a long drag down to the first corner. Ozrob and Lewis Wedding, positions 3 and 4. Jamie Nankervis and Brett Willis, the 2 remaining Volvos in the field, in 5th and 6th. And John Wright and Dylan Call will occupy the back row of the grid, positions 7 and 8. What we might do here, ladies and gents, is we'll take a small break just for a few seconds, and we'll return with the start of proceedings in just a few moments' time. All right, ladies and gentlemen, grid is forming up for race number 1. Looks like we've got Dane Liccardo back and just having a couple of little technical gremlins on his end. And
Yes,
we're ready to go. They've maybe ran over a cord on your mic or something, I overheard.
No, my controller fell off the desk and broke the cable I have connecting to my PC.
Oh, wonderful. It's going from bad to worse for you, isn't it? First it's the wheel, and now your controller's giving you grief. You're going to have to be extremely careful. I think I wouldn't want to have to put you in a padded room at some point.
Oh, it would probably do me no harm, I guess.
Well, what'll do him no harm is if Nathan Higginson can get away from the grid and maintain the rage and maintain first place into turn 1. Here we go for the first of 15 laps, and he got a brilliant start. What a beautiful conversion from Higginson. Osrob got a brilliant launch as well. Looks like Shannon Wright may have missed the jump. I'm not sure what happened there. That is something we are definitely not used to seeing, but he's fighting it back now. Or is that Brett Willis? That might be Brett. It is.
That's Brett Willis.
So Brett's had a pretty good start as well. So Shannon Wright's gone all the way back to, was 7th briefly, now 6th. He's had a terrible start. That is something extremely rare that we have not seen before. Look at him. He's buried in here. He's going to have to duke it out with Lewis Wedding here.
Knowing Lewis, he won't make it as I say that.
Oh, and that was a close run thing. Sorry to cut you off there. The teammate car, Jamie Nankervis, just swiped across the nose like a magpie swooping at a cyclist, and very lucky not to take the nose off Shannon Wright's car. That was a little bit unsafe.
Wide.
Yep, Lewis gone wide as well. But Jamie's now let Shannon through, and wow, that was this is a bit of an interesting start to proceedings.
Yeah, it's very odd to see Shannon go nowhere off the line. He's pretty good at his launches, but no surprise from Nathan about his start. He's been practicing his starts. He knows exactly what he needs to do. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think I've seen a better start from him at all this season. That's probably the best of the lot. And Shannon Wright having to recovery drive this one. Let's go and have a look at what's happening back here. So Lewis Wedding trailing in there behind Jamie Nankervis. We go on board with the BMW 635. This car, of course, one of a handful of the left-hand drive cars in the field with the Volvo.
He's having a look at Jamie.
Yeah, he's looking for it on the crossover here and looking to try and get the better exit out of 13. And that's not a bad exit, but just couldn't get on the power early enough to really make it count down this straight here. So you're going to have a bit of a late send. No, I think he's just going into a distraction mode here. Yeah. And well wide of the apex as well. That's going to hurt his straightaway pace, trying to get down here and into turn 1. It's actually just come up final lap, so I'm not sure what's going on here, whether or not we've actually had a bit of a moment or an issue come up here. Oh, I've just noticed something that I shouldn't have actually done. So that's my apologies. Sorry to John Wright for that one. I should have taken that car off the grid. I'll wear that one if that penalty's on me. Because
it was pretty exciting first lap, so no surprise.
I completely forgot that I had to pull the car in off the grid. That is, it's a symptom, I guess, of me being quite tired at the moment. Newborn being in the household, only 12 days old. It takes a little bit out of him, a little bit of a lack of sleep going on at the moment, which is why it's always good to have a little bit of extra company here in the box. But I'm hoping that that's not the cause of that. And if it is, I'll profusely apologise to all the drivers in the server there.
Well, I don't blame you, as that was a very exciting first lap. Some unknowns seen there with Shannon's start, which, as you said, I guess he just missed the lights.
Yeah, we're going to have to wait to see what happens with this one. And I'm wondering if some of the drivers actually know what's going on here, because they're all still racing pretty hard. And looks like after all of that, Lewis Wedding has managed to get back ahead of Jamie Nankervis.
Bale here showing its straight line speed with a 4.8 second gap. He's already got over Brett. I just noticed 4.9 now. I just noticed how big that gap was between first and second.
Yeah, well, Brett, I guess, is sort of looking at it from the point of view of he's just going to plod along and run his own race here. he's got, I guess, I wouldn't say nothing to lose, but he's got everything to gain by doing well. And he's driving the car nice and straight. He knows that the cars behind him, I guess, will no doubt catch him at some point. And they are slowly starting to reel him in. But we'll just wait and see how long it takes for Ozrob and Shannon Wright, who's moved up to 4th, to catch up with him. No, the timing's reset now, so that's a good sign. We're now back to...
Nathan.
Yeah, so Nathan's on it early here, so he's done essentially a qualifying lap to get going there. So timing is corrected, so a lucky break for us. 2 laps in and 13 to go, and enjoys a nice little margin. So it was the fastest lap of the race last time around. Shannon Wright down in the 2:15s. Higginson, the only man well and truly under a 2:15. He's done a 2:12. Just to give you an idea of the other lap times that came in, 2:15 flat for Brett Willis, 16 flat for Ozrob, 15.5 for Shannon Wright, Wedding a 15.7, Jamie Nankervis a 18 flat, and John Wright a 2:21.1. Dylan Call a 2:27.3. So lap times varying, but clearly got a lot of pace. Higginson's really going out hard and going out hard early.
Well, I think he's very comfortable in that car by the way he's having a dip and sending it. I'd say he's very happy and comfortable.
And he's driving the car extremely straight as well. This is something that I remark a lot about Shannon and the guys in the Gold Coast Lawn Bowls Volvos. They all take their time and they all drive the car nice and clean. A little bit of an untidy mistake there from Higo, but this is about as straight as I've seen the car. I haven't seen it sideways once yet.
This is not very Nathan Higginson-esque driving here, but he's doing very well to not be competing in Formula Drift.
Yeah, absolutely. No Tokyo Drift theme music tonight. Just a little bit of a half slide coming through turn 13, but pretty much helped the car get around the corner, I think, in that case.
Yeah, believe it or not, sometimes going sideways through corners in the VL can actually give you a really, really good run into the straight.
Yep. Well, here we go. We've got a bit of a challenge on here. So Lewis Wedding's having a bit of a sneaky look at Ozrob in the sister BMW. And
I thought he was on the inside.
Yeah, I thought he was going to have a bit of a late send there as well, but he's got a much better corner exit. He got a really good corner exit, and he's going to have a little bit of a look at turn 1 here, I think.
Yeah, I'd say he will as well.
Although, have a look, there was a little bit of change in pace for a minute. I wasn't quite sure what was going on there. And Lewis on the brakes is just going to have to be careful here. He doesn't get his nose taken off despite his face, and keeps it tight, and Ozrob prevails. So wasn't able to make that move quite stick. And Ozrob has sort of dropped away from the back of Shannon Wright here. So he was right with him about a lap ago, and that gap has started to open up. What's interesting though, I was about to say Hans, what's interesting though here, Dane, is we have a look at Shannon Wright. He's not really making any inroads into Brett Willis's differential either, is he?
No, which is surprising considering how close Nathan and Shannon are in the championship. You thought he'd be having a huge dip trying to catch Nathan. But no, he seems to just be taking it easy.
Seems to be quite content at the moment. And no matter, as soon as we switch away from that battle, Lewis actually has taken 4th place away from Ozrob. So to answer the comments from Roadies Racing, yes, it is Lewis Wedding aboard this Outworld broadcasting machine, the BMW 635 CSI, which bears no race number. We're actually going to have to give it a race number. I think we might give it the race number that, in honour of the one that Lewis always runs, number 89.
Yes.
I was about to say we should run with number 93, which is my customary number. But we'll run with 89 because that's the one I see him run the most.
Yes. Number 89 Outworld Broadcasting.
Yep, let's go with that one. And now that he's gotten past Ozrob, he is starting to clear away. How quickly can he reel in the 2 Volvos ahead? And have a look at Jamie. Jamie's now just started to range into view in the rearview mirror of Ozrob as well. New quick lap from Higginson, just lowers the mark by a tenth and a little bit, so he's down to a 2:12.445. Shannon now dives into the 213. So he's now started to just turn the wick up a little bit on his teammate. And good mate, I believe. I believe that the Gold Coast Lawn Bowls guys are all friends. They all know each other. I believe they're all Queenslanders. Don't quote me on that, guys, but I do believe they all know each other in some form or another personally. And now Brett, I believe they have to do some defending, but I kind of get the impression that if Shannon sends it here at some point, that Brett will just sidestep the argument and let him go.
Yeah, I don't think there'll be much of an argument about that position.
No, and as we said before, some of these drivers like Brett will probably just run their own race and let it go. And I think the next opportunity is here down at turn 8 and spot on. And a nice easy pass in the end for Shannon Wright.
Now the big question is, will he catch Nathan Higginson? Because Nathan was absolutely clearing out while that was happening.
That's a good question. Now I'm trying to work out how much Nathan has taken out of his tyres in the early stanza.
Well, if this was me in this position, what I'd do is I would have built the gap as soon as I can, say like this, and I would start to tone it down a bit, you know, not go as fast, not use my tyres, not use my fuel, try and conserve. Once that gap starts coming down to a point where it's coming down rapidly, then you start going again, so you actually have the tyres to pull away again while the person behind does not, because they've been pushing to close the gap.
So one thing that I've just read into what you've just said there, Dane, is that some of these tyres, you sort of have to give them a bit of a breather partway through a stint. Does that sound about right?
That is correct.
All right, there we go. So we've learnt something new here today, ladies and gentlemen. The tyres need to be, I guess, treated with a little bit of tender loving care and respect. And we've seen this in a number of series as well in AMS Oz, where tyres will work pretty well as a green tyre. They'll then go through a phase where they'll sort of feel like they've dropped off a cliff a little bit, but then they have a little bit of a late resurgence toward the back end of the stop, and you're able to push them again. And I think that's just due to drivers starting to treat those tyres like a little bit of glass, just to give them a little bit of respite, and then they start to come back. So that's actually pretty handy to know that it's much the same in this series. You can't push for the whole entire duration, and maybe just looking at Nathan's times, he's dipped back into a 2:12 at 2:12.6, so still putting some really decent and consistent lap times down. But he's just got to take a little bit of a moment, I would imagine, in the next couple of laps, just to give it a little bit of rest, and then the gap might start to come down a little bit. Maybe Shannon's gone the opposite way and has decided to conserve his tyres early and give himself a bit of life to fight with, and then try and have a good hard crack at closing the margin down before we get to pit stops.
Yeah, well, that gap between Nathan and Shannon's closed down by roughly a second from when they crossed the finish line. So I've been paying attention to those gaps. It went from about a 14.6, it's now down to a 13.4 right now. So you never know what we'll see.
Yeah, we'll keep an eye on the final times as they cross the line. Of course, we've got our Sim Hub timing up here in the broadcast booth, that we can see the fastest lap and the last lap for every driver as it happens. We unfortunately don't get the benefit of the sector times, or being able to go in and see the historical times that everybody has done. And there's already been a couple of early takers on pit road, so Dylan Call, the latest of those, and John Wright, the lap before him. And
Shannon's all over the job.
Yeah, that was quite a slide through turn 13, actually. The car was a lot more sideways than I thought it would have been, and quite a long way from the apex too. So gives me an indication that he's possibly pushing a bit. So there's Higginson's time of 13.7. But that margin went sort of back out to 14.5 seconds again. So what is Shannon Wright's time this time? And has that slide cost him a bit? And the answer to that question is yes, you're spot on. It's cost him another 0.3 of a second. So in the first sector, he was quite good. He'd cut that margin down by a second and a bit. And just a couple of little slides in that last sector, he has ended up losing light advantage. All right, so Brett Willis taking his stop. There he is, long shot of the pit lane.
Yeah.
And he's now let Jamie Nankervis go through. Now, where's John Wright and all this. He's down actually on the back straight behind the pit complex. So the pit complex is off to the broadcast camera's left, and Brett Willis, I think, should be safely out. Yeah, so that's an easy hold for this one for Brett, and expecting that he'll feed probably back in somewhere around that Lewis Wedding and Jamie Nankervis battle, depending on how much longer they go before stopping.
I just have a look at the track map. There's a lot more where the VL will excel around this track, like the huge straights that there are in here. That which is where the VL excels in any circuit is the straight lines. Whereas where Shannon would have been catching is, say, through the first complex of corners and the middle complex of corners. But I don't think it's enough to catch the VL in the straight lines.
Well, let's have a look and grab Brett Willis and just see if we can pick up on some of those. So this is part of the sector where you're talking about. So turns 5, 6 and 7, the downhill S's, being able to dance that car through those corners. Being able to get through corners such as this with a little bit more corner apex speed, which is turn 8, and then of course the opening sequence and couple of corners.
Yeah. Well, another thing where this car might do better is turn 15, because it doesn't understeer. It probably won't understeer as much in the high speeds, but as soon as that VL opens up, it's gone.
Well, 13.4 from Higginson this time around. That was his latest lap. And Shannon Wright, that's going to be a slightly longer lap. And he's coming in. So this is an in lap for Shannon Wright. So now, if I was Nathan Higginson, I've got to be reacting to this.
Yes. One of the weak points for the VL is probably any driver is probably their pit strategy, especially in the lead, because you just want to be out there for as long as you can. But it's one of those things that you've got to consider, especially with the compulsory pit stop like tonight.
Yeah, they're all sitting in the main Discord channel there as well. We can look up and see them all sitting there and having a good time. And also Ozrob has come to the lane as well. So half the field's been in. Over half the field's been in. The only cars yet to stop. Higginson, Lewis Wedding on screen right now, and Jamie Nankervis. There he is, just at the back of shot. Coming around.
Sorry about that. What would play a big role in when Nathan pits is how long the pit transit time is.
Yeah, we haven't quite measured that. We haven't quite measured that just yet. So it's talk about to us about the pit stops. We haven't really had a bit of a good solid look at the times for a pit stop, but based on what is Higginson's just overshooting it slightly at the end of the back straight there. So I think maybe the tyres are starting to get a little bit second hand, and we might see him in shortly. What sort of pit stop times do we have for taking on tyres and fuel?
I'm not too certain about the times, but I know the tyres do take a very long time. As in the game, they're only one lug, but I'm pretty sure in real life they were 5, so they've been slowed right down to change the tyres, and watching it happen is a bit of a killer.
Well, let's see if he peels into this. The pits this lap. Is he coming in? No. Pressing on. So he had a healthy advantage. And what's his lap time? 2:14.4. So it is starting to go back the other way now.
I'd bring it in this lap if I went.
Yeah, he had a good healthy advantage. It was out to about 15, 16, 17 seconds. But
he's 28 seconds out now.
Yeah, he's over Lewis Wedding, though. We were looking at what it was when it was Shannon Wright in position number 2. He just overshot turn 1 there a little bit, and I think Lewis Wedding might be coming in here, and he is. So I just saw in the back of shot Dylan Call had just gone through turn 1, and I thought, okay, Lewis can't be too far behind.
If I were Nathan, I'd bring it in this lap.
Yeah, I think he's got to get in. He's got to get in before lap 10. Otherwise, if Shannon Wright can bomb in a few quick laps, a good out lap and a couple of quick laps, the pressure will be on Nathan to get into pit lane and get that stop done and get it done cleanly. And then he's got to refocus his mind and get out there and try and potentially hold off a very fast charging Volvo at the back end of this race.
Yeah, well, I'd say roughly, from what I'm looking at here, the pit transit time is about 40, maybe 50 seconds. So if he doesn't come in now, he'll lose time to Jamie and Shannon.
Yeah, so right now Shannon Wright's is down by about 55 seconds overall, and keeping an eye on that margin, it's sort of stable just as we see right now at about 55.5 seconds. Now, is Shannon stuck in some traffic? No, he's not. He's just exited turn 4, and now you can see here this starts to make a bit of time. So it's gone from being 55.5 now down to that 54.5 as he really makes this car dance like a ballerina through some of those really tight turns.
If you actually watch the car, you can see it nose dive into the ground and just absolutely plant the rears as he comes out.
Yeah.
Hit the brakes.
Now, this is something you were telling me about before the broadcast tonight that you actually learned from Shannon, is about the weight transfer in the Volvo.
Yes.
It's a very big thing about making this car perform the way that it does.
Yes. As well as that, the Volvo has a slight bit more tuning capability than the VL. Probably doesn't make a huge difference, but the main thing is, yes, the weight transfer within these cars.
Well, that's interesting with the way that a lot of modern cars sort of seem to work as well, that they always talk about the car's ability to dive under brakes as well. As you can see, the diving is when the front suspension compresses to take the weight transfer, and of course transferring that weight to the wheels. So when you turn the wheel, you get the right amount of lateral grip that you need to turn through the corner. And in a lot of cases, if the weight is not transferred correctly, leads to front wheel locking, leads to understeering through corners. A lot of times, drivers will diagnose that they've having front locking as the brake bias being too far forwards, when in fact it's actually in the right spot. It's just that the suspension geometry and the spring stiffness and that, the setup for that is just transferring too much weight to the front. The car's is sort of resisting or not resisting enough of the weight transfer to prevent the wheels from locking up.
Yeah. Sometimes it's too stiff a suspension as well, which is a very big problem we had in the VL.
And that goes contrary to everything that you've just told me earlier tonight about, going with the stiffer suspension setups to try and keep it the right direction.
Yes, I know. It is contrary, but we have found something to change that. If you have it too stiff, it will lock up, but you can counteract that.
All right, good. So there's obviously a bit of a balance there in terms of not going to a full rigid type of setup with the suspension, but maybe just, one or two, I guess, clicks back from being too stiff of a car.
Yeah. Well, another thing with camber is a big play. Like with Singapore, I ran very little camber to stop the lock-ups because of the more contact patch you have with the road. I've just noticed something. Nathan Higginson hasn't peeled into the pits yet.
No, he's coming in right now. Here we
right
go.
now.
So yeah, he's the last man. He's the last man to pit at the end of lap 10. So here he comes, and he had a 52.5 second advantage over Shannon Wright. So his pit box, I think, is one of the last in the queue. There it is. He's all the way down the bottom end. Brings the VL to a stop, and now No, I don't think he's overshot it, but we're just keeping an eye on Shannon Wright here just to see where he pops out in all of this. So he's just on the run down to turn 14 and 15, so the last couple of corners. So it's a long straight, and Higginson's still stationary in the lane.
This could be very close if Shannon doesn't come out in front.
I think this is going to be a lot closer than a lot of people think it's going to be. Now, Nathan's on the move, and he's gotten out ahead, but this gap is now a lot closer, I think, than it actually was a little while ago. And Shannon's last lap was a 2:13 flat, so he started to pick up his pace a little bit. Higginson was doing 2:14s before he came in for his stop. His in-lap was a 2:19.
Yeah. I think those tyres were very worn on Nathan Higginson's car.
Well, the gap is now under 10 seconds. So Shannon Wright has made some inroads, don't get me wrong. He's done a great job to make some inroads there, but he's got a long way to go in the next 5 laps.
Yeah, well, hopefully... hopefully Shannon can find a little bit more pace out of this car and make an interesting final lap.
Well, that'd be an interesting lap, wouldn't it? It'd be an interesting final lap if Shannon was within some striking distance of Nathan Higginson's VL. Now that everybody has actually come through the pits, Brett Willis has found his way back to third place. So I was remarking that he was probably going to end up in that battle with Wedding and Ozrob, but look at this. Lewis Wedding is looking he's looking really, really racy. He's all over him like a cheap suit at the moment, and looking for any possible weakness that he can go through here. Taking some slightly different lines, the pair of them. So a little bit of a narrower line for Brett Willis through turns 9 and 10.
Very defensive from Brett Willis.
Yeah, a little bit on the defensive side, not quite as defensive as we've seen some drivers go in real-world motorsports, but he is driving the car a little bit off the ideal racing line, just sort of maybe a couple of feet inwards from the ideal line, and Lewis is just having to look at a couple of different options here, although this might be his chance. Just got to stick it up the inside here. He's got a little... very close.
Very badly.
Yeah, that had the potential to be a very, very bad accident there, and Lewis has just got to... Yeah, he's got to time his run here, and can he have a little bit of a look down into turn 14? No.
Yeah.
He's looking for the ideal line here. Brett's taking the narrow approaches, so what Lewis is trying to do is use the ideal racing line, carry the corner speed that usually should be going through the corner, because Brett's taking the different line, which means he's not at ideal corner pace, and try and out-drag him in some of these straights. But unfortunately for Lewis, Brett's actually parking his car in all the right spots on a couple of these occasions, and it's killing any momentum that Lewis has.
Yeah, something I've noticed just then. I think the Volvo might actually be a bit faster than the BMW down the straight. Maybe due to the aero that the Volvo has.
Well, I think that on that particular occasion, it was just down to Lewis trying to get that ideal line, and then when he went to get on the accelerator pedal, Brett was right there, and he had to get out of it. So I think that's why he lost so much ground coming out of the last couple of corners, because their overall lap times weren't too bad. Brett Willis's 2:15 flat to Lewis's 2:15.5, and all of that 0.5 of a second. Lewis kicks up a bit of dust, and very, very out of control. I think that 0.5 of a second was purely out of the last corner just because of that momentum getting killed. And the men behind them, Jamie Nankervis did a 2:15.3, so he didn't quite catch the pair of them on that last lap, and he's 4.5 seconds back, and you can see him just range into shot there coming through turn 10.
Well, another one to look out for is maybe Ozrob, because I think earlier he did a 2:13 to Jamie Nankervis.
His best is a 2:14.1, just looking at our timing screens at the minute, and his last lap around was a 2:17, so I think he actually has made a mistake at some point on the last two up. And maybe just, again, overdriving the car a little bit. A few drivers we've seen just overshoot that corner at turn 11 on a couple of occasions.
It's pretty odd considering Ozrob's first round at Phillip Island, his absolutely dominant performance in this BMW.
Yeah, Phillip Island being very much a driver's circuit, I think, as well. So he's had quite... a good time at Phillip Island, and it's one of my personal favourites as well. I spent enough time down there. But it is a driver's circuit, and it's one of those ones, I think it has a love-hate relationship with a lot of drivers too.
Yeah, I haven't had very good luck at Phillip Island. Just need to look back at the MSO Supercars event.
Yes, we got to look back at that, and I guess put that down to a bit of a learning experience. Now, I did see on the timing screen that it flashed up very quickly that Lewis had managed to slip past Brett Willis, but then it's gone back the other way about 2 or 3 seconds later. So he must have had a little bit of a dip and a dive at Brett somewhere in the back end of that last lap, and just got his nose ahead very briefly and not quite be able to consolidate the pass. One thing that is sort of being consolidated right now, Dane, is this lead that Nathan Higginson has. This is going up. This is getting... Yeah, so the margin that was down to under 10 seconds, Higo has really held his own here, held his nerve, and starting to drive really well again. And his last lap time was a full 1.1 seconds quicker than Shannon Wright. So this is a nice drive for Higo, and something that he'll probably put in his back pocket if he can come home with the chocolates here in race 1 and really hold his head high for driving this car the way that he has.
Yeah. Well, considering how excited he was about us getting ninth, which was a huge effort from myself and mainly Nathan, because he drove a lot during that race, he'll be ecstatic about this win. He's been coming for a long.
Yeah, he will definitely be happy with this win for himself. If we have a look at the results that he's had over the course of the year, he's had 4 podium finishes. He had a double podium in the very first round at Adelaide, where he was running the Mustang, a third and a second. Third at the first race at Phillip Island, and third at the second race at the Bend. So the win's been a long time coming if he can pull it together for the last 2 laps.
I'm pretty sure he will, because he just set a 2:12.2.
He has. He's lowered the bar. Very well spotted there. 2:12.289. That is the sort of lap time that we'd seen from Shannon Wright in practice. And Shannon hasn't been able to match it.
So there's no signs of this VL slowing down anytime soon.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
He has, I guess we can say, timed his pit stop to perfection, one would say.
Yeah, well, he was saying to me prior he's not very confident with his pit stop strategy, but it's paid off for old mate Nathan Higginson.
No, just about a lap and a half to go. And the one part of the circuit where I thought that this car would be a real handful is the 2 corners that it's just gone through, turns 9 and 10. But he's really found the right line for that turn and has been pretty much flawless through there all night. The one thing that a lot of drivers don't realise is there's an easy way to take that turn. You don't have to really dive in there at a huge rate of knots. We'll go on board with the Volvo of Jamie Nankervis, just so I can illustrate this point. You see him coming out of turn 8 here, coming all the way to the right, and you'll see here, off the throttle, just a little bit of light brake application, and then down the gears nice and gently, and just beautifully rotate the car through. That's the perfect way to take that corner. You don't need to barge in there at a vast rate of knots and try and slam the anchors on at the last minute, because it's very easy to lock a brake and very easy to go skating off at turn 10.
Yeah. The last thing you want to do is lock a front, or even a rear would be like worst case scenario. Going into that corner.
Higginson on the final lap, 2:12.8 that time around. So still in the 2:12s. And
he's brought that gap out to 14 seconds, mate.
Yeah, I think Shannon Wright's going to be scratching his head a little bit with this one as to how he was able to let that go here. But watching Lewis Wedding here, and he's about to have another crack at Brett Willis here. This battle is not over for the podium finishes. We're going to have to keep an eye on this. And Brett's a little bit wide. Lewis will sneak up the inside here. There he goes. And Nankervis is not too far away here either. Now, Lewis is going to be super careful here that he doesn't get a late send from Brett Willis, because he's thinking about it. And the Volvo is very good under brakes. And here it goes. Although he's
lost it. He's just pulled it up.
Yep, gone a bit deep. And Lewis
is sideways. This is not over.
No, this is definitely not over. Lewis very sideways on corner exit at turn 1, and this is now a drag race all the way up to turn 4. With Lewis will have the high ground, he'll have the inside line, and if he gets to get a bit cheeky here, he backs it in. He's backed it in too much.
He's done what Brett did at turn 1, and he's yielded that position to Brett. Now he's under attack by Jamie Nankervis.
Yeah, he's almost handed that 4th place to Nankervis, so try again, Lewis. And
he's definitely having a go now.
Yeah, he's gone into super distraction mode here, trying to get Brett to make another mistake like he did. Oh, that was mighty close. Brett just shot back across the... Yeah, shot right back across the nose here. Lewis harassing
right behind him.
The Volvo for all that it's worth. We'll cut very quickly to our race winner. He deserves this moment. He deserves
yes, he does.
All the accolades that go with it.
This is going to be a very happy Nathan Higginson. Well done.
Yep. You can start and cue the sideways celebrations now, Nathan, because you're off to victory lane.
Well done, Nathan.
Well done, here you go.
In the end, that was a roughly 13-second gap.
Oh, he's got...
He's
sorry to cut it done. And Lewis Wedding looks like he got it done at turn 11. Brett Willis resends the pass at turn 12 and 13, and he's back through. So we just picked... No, it's not over still. He picked up that Lewis had got the pass done at turn 12 on the inside. Brett tried to resend it at 13, couldn't get done. And here comes Nankervis down the inside, and Lewis has overshot. No. Oh no, Lewis overstepped. Lewis sidestepped it. He's seen that Brett was coming, or somebody was coming, and coming at a vast rate, and not sidestepped the argument, let the Volvo go sailing past, and he will now occupy the last step on the podium. Very, very smart driving there from Lewis Wedding to see the Volvo, I think it was of Brett Willis, just come sailing on past, completely missed the braking marker going into 14, and just had the best bit of situational awareness at the right time to just stay to the left, let the Volvo go through, and then just turn in for the corner and said, thank you very much, I'll drive straight to position 3 on the podium.
Brett would not be happy about that, as we see Nathan doing. The best thing Nathan can do, and drop a fat.
That's it. It's all about dropping the 11s on this thing. And I reckon those tyres are gone. Look how low that car is sitting in the back. They are gone.
He's definitely popped them. I reckon he would have popped them as soon as he crossed the line. That's how excited he was.
Yeah, I think he would have come to a complete stop, bagged it up, and there'll be 11s going down the middle of the road here. But fantastic result for Higo, and a great showing from Lewis Wedding as well. What a last lap from those guys. Brett Willis, you're right. He's probably not going to be too thrilled with that one, given that he had held third position quite comfortably for a lot of that race, defended really, really well from Lewis from all the attacks, and just in that last lap, that last lap and a half, his concentration just started to lose a little bit.
Or he cracked under pressure. You never know.
We'll never know the answer of it, and I don't think we're probably going to get the answer.
Yeah. Well, what a race. Shannon second, Nathan first, Lewis third. Then Curvis was about to get P4, maybe even P3. He was right on the back of those two in that last few complex of corners.
Oh yeah, he was there. He was there to pick up the scraps if something went wrong, for sure. There was definitely no doubting that, and it was just, as I keep saying, that we keep harping on to a lot of the drivers in AMS Oz about situational awareness, and that is the best example of situational awareness that I've seen for a little while now. Just realising that there was no way that the Volvo behind was going to stop in time, and at that point in time you just don't turn in for the corner. You just let them go through, avoid the accident, and then just do your best to get to the line after that, and he did that to perfection.
Exactly.
The finishing positions also in that one, so outside of the top 4, Nankervis finished 5th, Ozrob 6th, John Wright in 7th place, and Dylan Call, the last man home, in position number 8. So 8 cars that started the race, 8 cars finished, so good to see a 0 in the column for those that did not finish this race. So not everybody got home, and just having a bit of a look to see what that does with the championship picture. Of course, it doesn't change very much for the two front runners, because it's just a gain for Nathan Higginson. It's only a 2-point gain over Shannon Wright because of the nature in which the point system works. So 40 points for a win in the opening race, and it's 50 points for a win in race 2. So slightly different point structure between the two. What it has done for Jamie Nankervis, mate, I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news, is it has promoted him ahead of yourself in the point standings by 6 points. So there's only a little bit, still a bit of work to do when you get back.
Yes.
And it's also And it's also moved Brett Willis ahead of Termo, who's not here tonight either.
Yeah. Well, from what I understand, the first round we're back is Calder Park, which is a track I know and love like the back of my hand. So I'm pretty confident I'll do all right there with a car I love and a track I love.
Well, Calder Park is something that a number of drivers, including yourself and Lewis Wedding, have managed to have some success at over the last couple of years. We've run it in AMS Oz, and the circuit layout, I believe it's actually a conversion from Automobilista that's just been had a few issues trying to get it to behave.
Uh, no,
And
I think it's been built by John.
yeah, it looked very similar to the AMS Oz one, so I was a bit worried about actually if it was being built or not. I know there's been quite of builds being done, but
Yes.
we've left that for time being. It's had a bit of I guess a hard birth. It's moved a couple of times on the calendar, and well,
Yes.
speaking of Lewis Wedding, he's
Here
stepped
he is.
he stepped into commentary here. Lewis, we normally don't do the interviews until after race 2 is over, but you're here early. You decided to have a dip, and have a dip you did.
Yeah, had a bit of a dip. It was a bit interesting out there. I can see the strengths and weaknesses of all the different cars while you're out there on the circuit. So yeah, it was a interesting run, bit of fun, and hopefully race 2 is just the same.
Well, you're going to be getting out there for race 2, which hopefully is the case. I believe if you're going to give us an insight as to if you are or if you're not.
What was that, sorry?
You're going to have a run in race 2 as well.
Yeah, I'll have a dip.
All
I'll
right.
have a dip, and hopefully can pull together another strong run there.
Yeah, podium, which is good to see. And we were remarking just at the back end of that race, which we caught on the broadcast, great situational awareness just to spot that the Volvo wasn't going to stop in time and avoided the accident by not turning in at the time you needed to and just waited those extra couple of seconds for it to go sailing by. So what did you think when you saw that Volvo approaching at a vast rate of knots in your rearview mirror?
Yeah, well, I knew Jamie was coming quite quickly as well. So when we'd been battling for a few laps, I mean, Brett, I knew that Jamie was right there, and then obviously on that last lap, he was right behind us. So once I got ahead of the penultimate corner, it was just all about not stuffing up the final one. And then I see in the mirrors that yeah, Jamie was having a bit of a crack on Brett behind me, and I figured, one of them might brake really, really late because that's what they've been doing in the Beamer. I've got to brake a little bit earlier, so saw them coming in my mirror, saw the car directly behind me. I don't know which one it was, sort of spear to the right-hand side, and Jamie, I think the other car was already there as well, further down the right. So I was just like, well, I'll watch them hopefully sail by, and hopefully I won't get, smashed in smithereens, which thankfully I didn't. And then it was just about trying to get drive out the final corner and get to the finish line.
Well, you did well to get to the finish line, pick up a podium in your first attempt at Assetto Corsa Aussie Down Under Series, and I did say to you at the beginning of the night, if you wanted the night off from commentary, you're more than welcome to have a dip, and good to see you out there, mate. You deserve to run around and have a bit of time to have some fun, let's just say.
Yeah, it's been through even with AMSLs and stuff like that, I haven't really been able to go out there and just not think about too much about the result and just go out and have fun. And thankfully, I've been able to do that tonight. So John and the boys letting me, letting me race, and yeah, hopefully race 2 is just as fun.
All right, well, we'll throw you back up into the general chat and get ready to go for race 2, which is about a minute and a half away, and off he goes.
Sorry, they gave me time to eat some dinner.
Just give you time to wolf your dinner down, I was about to say.
Yeah, that's why I was on mute.
There we go. Now, if you, I think I've caught Hans on one or two broadcasts trying to stuff his mouth full of food with in between things as well. And there's always a few deathly periods of silence sometimes on our supercar streams, and I think it's either because he's trying to process something I've said, or he's trying to get a bit of food into him because, like a number of people, he's works quite late, and everybody needs to eat. There's no ifs, buts, or maybes about that.
Yeah. Well, there's a point or two in there that you actually caught me eating, but you probably didn't pick up on it.
No, there's certain things that I'll pick up, and there's certain things that I don't pick up. But I guess that comes with being a little bit on the tired side as well. I'm sort of not quite tuned into some of those things at the moment. But what we will get tuned into in about 30 seconds is the reverse grid race for the second race of this evening. So, looking at the reverse grid order, so in the order of the way that they finish, so it'll be Dylan Call and John Wright as it stands right now will be on the front row. Then behind them it will be Ozrob and Jamie Nankervis. Brett Willis and Lewis Wedding are going to resume their battle off of row 3, and Shannon Wright and Nathan Higginson. So now this will be interesting to see how these quick guys manage to get through the field after having a nice clear run throughout that whole entire race 1, having started on the pole and converting beautifully. Nathan Higginson is going to be very, very cautious, I would imagine, at the beginning of this one, just to see how he goes and if he can pick and choose his time. Now, we've just got a little bit of a... Just noticed something. We've just got the grid getting ready to go. You can hear the rumbling in the background. There we are. It's actually gone to a daylight condition, so I'm not sure if that's deliberate or not. And I'm actually seeing in the back, is that Lime Mitch?
That's Lime Mitch. I'm certain that's Lime Mitch.
I believe it is. It's a bit far back for me to actually see it, but I'm looking at the car and I've seen him just pop up into the Discord. I'm like, okay.
It's Lime Mitch.
It's Lime Mitch. Okay, so we're getting a little bit of transitions here going on, so I'm not sure if this is supposed to happen or not.
I'm going to be reminded to remove your car off the grid this race.
Yes, I will be reminded to do that. We'll get through the opening half a lap. Let's make sure we don't have the same sort of excitement we did last time. We're probably going to forget again.
Yeah.
I'll have my hand hovered over the escape key on the keyboard. How's about that? That should remind me.
Yes.
All right.
What's going to be interesting is Osrob. He's very hard to pass, so if he gets a good start, he could be very, very hard to pass.
Yep. There we go. We're back to nighttime conditions. I think that John Wright's just tapped in on the content manager and made that adjustment.
Yeah, lights on.
Right, here we go. Reverse grid race. Calamity or not? Let's find out.
Drop the clutch.
Off they go. Have a look at that. You called it. Osrob, beautiful launch through the middle. Goes straight through.
Shannon with a pretty good start this race.
Yep, much better start from Shannon Wright. Oh, a bit of boxing going on here. Is that Brett Willis and Dylan Call? And Nathan Higginson's had a pretty decent start up to P3 already, so he's ahead of Shannon Wright.
Yes, I called the wrong golf. Oh,
hey, and Higginson around off of the first chicane. So that is a setback. And who else is that? That's Jamie Nankervis as well. So not sure if there was some contact there or not.
No. That's not going to... People aren't going to be happy with that.
No, definitely not. That's going to be, no doubt, have a review. And Lewis Wedding has moved up to second. We'll now take this opportunity to get rid of the course car from the pits. So no more problems that time around. And it's a BMW 1-2 at the moment. Osrob ahead of Lewis Wedding. So good start from Osrob. Looks like Higginson had made a really good start, but not quite sure what happened after turn 2. Yeah.
We had the replay feature.
Well, the hard part with the hard part, the difference between AMS and Assetto Corsa is that the replay file for Assetto Corsa comes after the race is over. We actually can't go back and view it until after it's over. So we've got to call it as it stands, which is the way we do it in the real world, ladies and gentlemen. You've got to call it as you see it and worry about the ramifications later.
Well, Nathan's already up into P7, passing Nankervis and Call. And he's catching John, I'd say, fairly rapidly.
Yeah, so the next man that he's got on target, so there's Lime Mitch, there's John Wright, there is Nathan Higginson behind him, and quite easily past Dylan Call. Now, Higginson's just going to have to settle down here. Just got to be careful not to fall back into old habits of overdriving the car. He knows what the car's capable of, as of evidence of that being in race 1. And he's just got to drive it nice and straight and nice and smooth. Oh, yeah, bit deep.
Yeah, right wide.
Yep, well wide of the ideal turn-in point and well wide of the apex.
I'd say you call it right now. He's definitely overdriving that car by the looks of it.
Let's have a look at the standing lap times. Osrob's 2:19.3 at the moment, the quickest lap of the race.
Oh, it's sending it.
Yeah, I actually think there might have been two parts to play in that. I think maybe John might have braked a little bit early, just realising that It's not a battle for him to, I guess, fight at this point in the race, and he's out there for his own reason. Oh, and Dylan Call, we've just seen him have a bit of a rotated the car off of turn 1, had a half spin, gathers it up, plucks a gear, and gets going.
It's going to be interesting between Higginson and Lion Mitch, because I don't reckon Lion Mitch is going to play very nice with Nathan around here. He's going to make that VL as wide as I've ever seen a VL.
Yeah, and
he's
run wide there, so he's not quite doing it just yet, but this is the point in time where, as you said, Lion Mitch may or may not play nice for Higginson's cause here. I'm wondering if something else had actually happened to Jamie Nankervis on that first lap as well, because he's dropped right to the back of the field after having the spin, but whether or not he's had another incident after that, he's only just gotten past Dylan Call now.
Yeah.
And it's been a quick change that we've just missed off broadcast as well, so Lewis Wedding dropping to P3, Shannon Wright making hay while the moon is up and the sun is down, and the sky is replaced by the bright lights that surround this circuit, and he's now in a BMW sandwich trying to hunt down the race leader. He's got to make this count. Higginson through. So Higginson through on Lion Mitch, so that was a little bit easy at the end, and it happened at turn 13. Yeah, it looked like he was a little bit wide, but that happened at turn 13.
This is something I'm not. Brett will not make it easy.
No, next challenge is we already had evidence to see of that in the previous race with him boxing on with Lewis Wedding for the closing laps.
215, 214, 216.
Yeah, 14 flat for Shannon Wright is the opening lap. Higginson, 212.5.
He is not going slow there.
Yep. And is he having a look down the inside of Brett Willis? Oh!
Outbraked himself.
Yeah, outbraked himself. Now, Brett turned in for the corner there at the usual spot where he normally turns in for the corner. Turns in quite early, and we'd seen that in race 1. John Wright doing the same trick as Higginson, going deep at turn number 1. But yeah, he drove it in there quite hard. I think Higginson was just a little bit over-eager to try and make that pass and didn't quite execute to perfection. Brett Willis just had to give him a little bit of extra. He had to take a second look there. He was turning in and wasn't quite aware that there was a VL trying to make a pass stick. And the next thing that we'll probably see when trying to make a pass stick is where Shannon Wright can try and get this passing move done on Ozrob. And thought about it.
Yes.
Worried him out of it. He's worried him out of it. The late send. Distraction tactics. And that's enough.
Paid off.
And that's
as you've told each me.
And that's about being a wily old fox and just sort of knowing what you can and can't do and what you can and can't get away with. And that's an easy one to get away with, is just have a bit of a half look, just get the driver ahead of you a little bit distracted about what to do. They take their eyes off the road and off the task at hand for a few seconds, and that's your opportunity.
He is gaffed. He is cooling it away already. 4 tenths of a second.
Yeah, so Ozrob may have a bit of a look here if he can get a good run out of turn 13. But just the gap has just started to open up in the latter stages of this run down the straight now. And yeah, I think Shannon Wright will sort of clear away from here. The one part we need to look at now is what the margin is to Higginson, because Higginson is now caught up behind Brett Willis again. Now he's got good run out of the final corner, Higginson, and
he's got the pass done.
And he's got the pass done. Just got to be careful. He's got it done now. I was about to say, just got to be careful that he didn't close down on Brett Willis that time around on corner exit. So 9.2 seconds as they get to the braking zone for one.
Jeez, that was going to be interesting.
And that's a bit of a difference in the braking performance for the Volvo versus the VL. VL having to brake a lot earlier, the heavier car, whereas the Volvo can go a little bit deeper into the zone.
Sometimes you can brake later. I've outbroken the Volvo a fair few times on some tracks, say like Bathurst at the Chase. You can really reel them in the braking zone if you're not close to the gap by the straight.
Some of the hard braking corners can be a bit, I wouldn't say marginal, but there's that sort of range of about a 5 metre to 10 metre piece of track where if you hit the brakes, you're 99% guaranteed to pull the car up for the corner. If you go beyond that point in time on the track, then you won't pull the car up, and a couple of drivers have already seen that at turn 1 in this case.
Maybe we'll see Nathan do what I did at Surface Paradise, get the win in P3. 2 podiums, can't complain.
Yeah, 2 podiums would be, I think he'd be happy with. The one bit we've got to keep an eye on is what the margin is going to come down to. If Nathan can get back in that groove that he was in race 1 with the 2-minute 12s and the 2-minute 13s and start to close that gap down, I think his chances of getting a pass done before the pit stops are probably not great. He's got to focus on closing that gap down and then just getting on and off pit road as quickly as he possibly can.
Has Live Mitch pitted?
Yes, he has. So we did see that just the last lap. So he's come in for a very early stop. I think it was about the end of lap 4 we saw everybody, or the first few stops start to come through. So let's have a look at the times they come in.
19.
11, 9. Nathan Higginson pulling out all the stops. That is the fastest lap we have seen of the night by a margin. 0.3 of a second faster than anything, and having a little bit of celebratory sideways action. It wouldn't be Higginson with some sideways action. I'll tell you what, his eyes would have been the size of dinner plates when he saw that number flash up on the screen. I can almost guarantee you of that. And I think a few of the competitors would have taken a second look at their HUDs as well to see that number flash up too.
Yeah, that probably would have been a good distraction tactic from Nathan.
Yeah, that's another way. Yeah, exactly right. That's another way to make a good distraction tactic, is to set something that the other drivers will see and start to think, uh-oh.
If I were Ozrob or Shannon, I'd be shaking my boots right now, as that's Ozrob right in the foreground.
Yeah.
That shot.
They're going to have
shaking my boots if I were them.
Yep, they're going to have to start to pick up the pace and start to pick up the pace appreciably right now. They're going to have to really start to get their elbows out, start to defend. I think Higginson's still got a little bit of clear track just before he gets to Ozrob. Change of position a bit further down the field, and that would be Henan Curvis going past John Wright. I think there might have been, and that's him recovering through the field.
Yeah. From what I understand, the BMW sounds have been changed for the RX-7 rotary because they were having issues with the sounds.
Yeah, we did have that back at the Phillip Island round. We didn't have any sound for the BMW 635 at all. And actually, let's go on board. Let's pick that up. So it sounds...
They seem to have rectified that.
They seem to have rectified it. So it doesn't sound like a rotary to me.
I can tell you it's definitely a rotary after Phillip Island because it's very loud.
Yes, so I'm more akin to hearing what the very distinct note that the rotaries produce, especially in the improved production ranks, which I'm seeing a handful of this weekend at the Phillip Island Grand Prix circuit, the 30th anniversary of Pyark's Island Magic, and there's only one in the field. There was scheduled to be 2. There was actually meant to be Cam Vanderdungen was meant to get his RX-8 that he's got him build out for Island Magic, but the roll cage that they were waiting on came through, and it wasn't the right one, so they had to withdraw the car. So it's just Rolfie Mammers in his RX-7, the only one out there this weekend. Unfortunately, that event not open to the public.
Oh, Lyman just had DNF.
Okay, so he's dropped out in probably the last lap or so, I think. How many laps has he completed? I think he might maybe have had no, he's in the Discord still, so I'm wondering if that's a game problem that he's had there, not an internet disconnect, so...
Crashed or something?
Very possibly there. Just obviously what's happened to him has happened in the last 30 or so seconds.
Yeah.
Now I'm looking to see, I think Lewis Wedding may have been in for a pit stop, and we've missed that because he's now getting past John Wright.
He pitted like a lap or 2 ago.
So
That one I was paying attention for.
there you go. So that's why you're here. Help me keep track of what goes on a night like this. And Wedding really getting the tail out, using all the parts of the racetrack, and now trying to charge his way up to the back of Jamie Nankervis. Look at the margin here. So Shannon Wright making lap time over Ozrob. There he is on screen. It looks like it might be starting to go back the other way on this lap. The last lap around, Shannon Wright was 2.2 seconds quicker. Let's see what the times are this time around. We'll get a readout in a few seconds. 2:13.2 for Shannon. Ozrob a 2:14.2 and Higginson a 2:12.7. So Higginson faster than the pair of them. Oh, looking for... No, that's getting close. And
he's overshot.
He's overshot. And that's good evasive action from Ozrob. Just sidestepped it, moved the car about 6 feet to the right.
15.5 for Brett. 15.5 for Brett. Can't quite make out that number.
Yeah, that was a 16.5 actually. So that's a personal best on the second race for Brett Willis. We get to the halfway point. We've only seen about 2 or 3 takers on pit road. We'd seen about half the field by the time we got to this part in proceedings. So will everybody start to pull the same trick? I'm wondering... Yeah, jumped sideways on him when he got on the corner exit of turn 7 and tried to apply the throttle. Rear wheels did not agree. Rear end did not agree. And the rear end of the car wanted to overtake the front end of the car. Now, the bit for me with Nathan Higginson here, Dane, is I think that he might need to think about taking an earlier pit stop if Ozrob doesn't come in and he starts to hold him up.
So, go for the undercut, you reckon?
Yeah, I think he might need to consider it. He's got a lot more pace in hand than what's obviously on screen at the moment, because he gets to the back of Ozrob's car and has made a couple of silly little mistakes that has meant he had to do that work all over again. Although in a moment like that, Ozrob might just be conceding second place. No, keeps it pointing the right direction. He did have a spin there earlier in race 1, and now I think he's vulnerable down the straight into turn 14.
Yeah.
There we go.
Done by Nathan.
Easy pass in the end.
I think that undercut factor you were talking about has
doesn't need... Yeah, it's null and void now. It doesn't need to take effect.
Well,
Shannon Wright in. Race leaders in. Sorry to call on that one there. Shannon Wright has taken a service. Now, this is about the same time I think he did in the last race as well. So employing the same sort of strategy. And that promotes Higginson to the front.
If Nathan can do a really, really solid in and out lap, I reckon he'll come out in front of Shannon.
Yeah, I agree with that. But he's just gone deep at turn 1 yet again. And I'm sort of wondering whether or not he's just pushing the envelope a little bit too far in that braking zone going into turn 1. Knowing that he's capable of doing a 2-minute 11, I think he's probably going to try and match that time. But realistically, he just needs to settle into the groove, bang out some of those 2-minute 12s that he's done in race 1 quite consistently, and then he'll end up being right on Shannon Wright's tail after he comes in for a stop, if not in front.
Exactly. I think Lewis just did a personal best of a 2:13.7, I think that was.
2:13.8, very close, but good to see you're on the ball.
Yes.
And now we get a couple more. We've got a couple more takers on pit road. John Wright, Jamie Nankervis, they've taken service.
That's John Wright's second service.
I'm not sure. I think you might be right. He's been in it. I'm not sure if he's been in it at least once already, but if he comes out ahead of Dylan Call, I think he'll say he's only been in for the 1 stop. Shannon Wright's back on track, heading down to turn 9.
Yeah, I'd say the pit turn time's roughly 40 seconds. So if Nathan can pull out a 40-second, pull it at about, I don't know, 7-ish seconds, he'll come out in front of Shannon Wright.
Well, I think now he's demonstrated in race 1 that even when Shannon came out on newer tyres, that Higginson was able to continue to pull a gap for a couple more laps afterwards. So I think he'll be looking at that data and seeing if he's got it in the car to repeat exactly that. Get a lap time this time around, so 13.4, so that's fairly healthy.
Yeah.
And the gap is sort of staying consistent at around 33 seconds.
Yeah. Dylan calls in the pits. So I think I was wrong in that statement of John Wright having 2 pits.
Yeah, I think Dylan's actually been in once already as well, so he was very, very early in the piece.
Maybe John has pitted twice. I don't know. Should look into that.
Yeah, that's a bit of a perplexing one. I'll have to go back and have a bit of a look at the results after that one. This is a really unusual line that Brett takes for this corner. He turns in so early compared to the traditional line that we're used to seeing from a lot of drivers. I guess it's a style thing. A lot of drivers have those different styles. They like to sort of be very smooth, or some of them like to be quite aggressive with their driving, and some people like to take unconventional lines. But with Brett doing a 2:15.7 that last lap around, 2:16.7 that last lap around, I guess it's working for him.
Yeah, well, I reckon I agree with him. I reckon they're struggling a bit out there. These all-wheels as a team Volvos. Well, maybe not Shannon, but definitely Brett and Jamie. They're not as high up as we're used to seeing them.
No, definitely not. And of course, those guys will all share setups and share information and knowledge. So it's not uncommon that they would all be sort of having the same sort of dramas. Although I must say, Shannon Wright seems to have found a little bit of pace here, because the margin is now under, or very close to rather, 30 seconds. So Higginson might need to take the bait here, get in and get a fresh set of boots, and then set out in pursuit of Shannon Wright, because he's starting to lose time. It's starting to go the opposite direction to what he needs it to, although in this occasion, going down the straights, it is going the right direction for him, but the overall on this lap is a net loss as it stands right now.
Yes, net loss is roughly 3 seconds. If I were Nathan, don't know.
That goes around again. Osrob comes in. 15.9.
Yeah, definitely. I'd say he's doing exactly what he did last race.
Yeah.
He was absolutely rapid in those first few laps.
I think you're right, Dane. I think he's decided to go with the same strategy of coming in at the end of this lap. John Wright in again. Yeah, so you were right. Maybe, I'm wondering if he had a pass-through penalty on that particular occasion. It didn't look like he was in the lane for very long. Osrob in. Oh, and Osrob gone. Osrob out.
There.
So
Brett in.
And Brett Willis comes in. So I'm not sure what's happened to Osrob there.
From Shannon. Sorry, just thought I'd point out that lap time.
Yeah, 2:12.8, and that's a personal best for him on this lap. So Shannon Wright's doing all the right things at the moment, and really taking this margin down as quickly as he can. I think Higginson had a mistake on the previous lap, because that's a huge difference of 3 seconds to ignore.
Well, that's promoted Lewis Wedding up into P3.
It has indeed. Now, the way that the system works is that you can get back into the game and pick your car back up again and complete the race and get some points. But I'm not sure if Osrob's going to be able to get back in and get that one done. He's still in the Discord chat.
Yeah.
So expecting him to be ready to try and get back in.
2:15.4 from Jamie.
And that'll be, I think, his first flying lap since the... Yeah, actually, that's not his first flying lap since the pit stop. That's a personal best for him as well. So a couple of drivers starting to go fairly late. Yeah, I think he's just opting to let Shannon go through just to not impede him on the back straight. This margin, look at it now, 26.7 seconds. So Higo's got... No, I don't think this is working for Higo. I think these tyres might be a little bit done. He's got to get in and get those fresh set of boots right now. If he doesn't come in this lap, he's going to lose this race. He's a bit narrow on the corner exit and keeps going.
Oh.
Okay, so I think this race is probably starting to slip away from him here.
That spin at the start certainly didn't help from him.
No, definitely not. Although I think I would, because although we don't know what quite happened at this part of the circuit here, turns 2 and 3, we only can assume that there was a bit of contact and that it might need to be looked at after the race.
Well, Higginson's done. Higginson's gone on deafened, so I can't even go down there and tell him, get in the pits.
No, well, we don't want to sort of give that to him as well, give him the luxury of deciding his own pit strategy. He needs to do that for himself.
Exactly. Well, sometimes you'd have May to follow in, or he'd say, just dive in now. It's a bit of a mixture for both of us when it comes to this sort of thing. We have each other's back in this strategy.
Now this race has really settled into, I guess, a rhythm all of its own. Everybody's got their own little bit of track. So Higginson's 26.5 seconds clear of Shannon Wright. This gap coming down all the time. And
he's still pulling away from Lewis though, sorry.
Yeah, he is still pulling away from Lewis. So Lewis Wedding third place on the road at the moment. So it'll be a pair of thirds as it stands at the moment. Brett Willis has made his stop. He's just negotiating the Cara Dillon call that is 1 lap down. Jamie Nankervis, another 2.15 that time around, a 15.9 to go with his 15.4 on the previous lap. He's also taking a little bit of a narrower approach to turn 1.
I think Shannon does as well, if I'm honest. I think it's just a Volvo thing.
I'm wondering what the reasoning behind that is. We're going to have a look at Shannon next time he comes around to that part of the circuit. John Wright a lap down, Dylan Call a lap down, and everyone's pretty much running all on their own at the moment. They've got no other traffic to contend with, and they've just got clear track ahead. They can just continue to pound out the laps.
Is Nathan coming in?
Yes, he is.
No.
Here we go. Finally. Oh, is he? Yes. Looked a bit different, weird for a minute. All right.
Oh, he might be pinned for speeding.
Very possible. He was very quick getting onto pit lane. So here he comes. We expect to see the Volvo of Shannon Wright just emerge around the final corner any second now.
There he is, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, there's going to be an easy hold for Shannon here. So Higginson will come out. Higginson will come out with a comfortable margin over Lewis Wedding though. You can hear the car off to the left. The VL's engine just idling away. And yeah, he definitely needed to get in a lot sooner. Here he goes.
Depends on the gap, he might be able to pull it down. No,
Yeah.
10 seconds.
Yeah, he might be able to pull it down a little bit.
He might
Oh, look at
find
this.
fucking Lewis.
Yeah, he's going to have to be real careful here. Lewis Wedding.
He's lost a huge amount of time.
Yeah, a lot of that is due to there's at least out of that 13.5 second margin that he suffers to Shannon Wright at the moment. 7 of that came after Shannon Wright had stopped and was already cutting the lap down, or the lap time down. So I think he's missed a trick here. He's missed the ability to go in and react to Shannon Wright's stop. And had he have done that, he would have come out with a 7.5 second deficit and about 7 or 8 laps to run, rather than the 4 laps to run and a 13.5 second deficit that he's got now.
It's unfortunately not looking good for Nathan, but P2 and P1 still not a bad night. Though things could change within a snap of a finger, you know. Shannon could go DNF like Oldrob did, or maybe go off the track like Brett Willis did. You never know.
Yeah, you never know. If we just plug the math into the calculator right now, just based on where everybody stands as it is right now, if it is a first for Shannon Wright and a second for Nathan Higginson, they will both end up with the same amount of points after the night is over. They'll both end up on 88 points. The maximum course you can have for any one night of racing is 90 because of how the point structure works, with the 40 points on offer for the race 1 and the 50 points on offer for a victory in race 2, which is the reverse grid race, and then only 2 less points in the second positions.
Speaking of that gap between Nathan and Shannon, Nathan's closed that down by a second.
Yeah, good strong outlap. So here he gets a time as 2:51's the outlap because he crossed the pit lane or the start-finish line in pit lane when he came in for the stop.
Yeah, I'd say that if there was no stop, that would have been a quick lap.
And
He's bowls it wide at turn 1.
Yeah, bowls it a little bit wide at turn 1. We missed an opportunity also to go and have a look at Shannon Wright and his approach to turn number 1. So let's have a look here. I'm wondering if, I'm not sure if John Wright just flashed the lights there or if that was just the light reflecting off the back of the Brett Willis machine. Let's have a look at his approach to turn 1. We've been remarking about this all night. So breaking point is at about the 150 usually. And yeah,
going very shallow, knocking the front.
Yeah,
Just
really early turn in. So that's how he tackles that particular corner. And we'll look at Jamie Nankervis. Let's see if all the Volvo drivers are doing the same thing.
I'd say that, no.
Jamie doing the same, but not to the same severity as his stablemate in Brett Willis. He turned in for the corner still a bit early, sort of narrowed up the line, but didn't make a beeline for the apex or for the inside curb at the same rate of knots that Brett did.
A bit more conventional.
Yeah, slightly more, or slightly closer to conventional, I guess we can call it.
Yeah.
And the third man in the trio that we want to take a look at is Shannon Wright. And you take a look at people like Nathan Higginson and Lewis Wedding we've been watching all night, taking that traditional line, the Formula One style line, staying out wide, wiping off a lot more speed, and then getting that late cut right across the face of the apex, the perfect spot, and allowing them to pick up the throttle as early as they possibly can, power out of that turn, and then pretty much go through the two turns that are really easy to navigate.
What was that, 213 or 212?
212.9
Okay.
for Shannon. And let's have a look at his line. And he's a little bit more conventional, but still quite a little bit narrow.
7 by Nathan.
Wow. That's a lap and a half from Higginson. Not wasting any time, putting on a little bit of a show here, but he knows that the chance for the race win is gone. What's happened to Lewis Wedding in all of this? He's had a shocker. He's had a shocking last lap at a 2:22.7.
I reckon he's made a mistake.
Yeah, he has to have made a mistake somewhere on that lap. I think he's a cricket fan too, so we pull out our best Richie Beno here, and we say 222 for his 2-minute 22.7 lap.
He's all out of shape. He's right out sideways through here.
He was one of the very early stoppers, I think, as well. So he's probably got some tyres that are a bit second rate, but he's really throwing this car around in the last two laps.
He's taking the VL approach and competing in Formula Drift here.
Yeah, he's taking on the Nathan Higginson moniker of get it sideways or let it all hang out or whatever you want to say.
Well, funnily enough, it was actually faster for myself at Singapore, I think we were last week, to go sideways through the last corner.
Yeah, because it helps rotate the car a little bit through some of those corners as well. There's quite a few corners on that circuit where getting the back end out and sliding the car through the corner had a better, ended up in a better result for the car through the turn than just trying to take the conventional line, because it's some of those 90 degree or more than 90 degree corners, you were waiting an eternity to get back on the power.
Yeah, well, staying on it through the corner actually gives you the exit.
There you go. So different handling characteristics of all the different cars. Pits are closed for the final lap commencing.
13.
Yeah, 13.8 that time around for the race leader, and 14.8 for Higginson. So, yeah. So I think at this point in time, he knows that there's no point pushing the car as well. Just got to bring it home, pick up the points. You can stand on the roster and twice tonight, so why not? Just settle for it.
Because it's Nathan.
No, I don't think Nathan will send it. I think he's driven probably one of the best pair of races we've seen all season long. We take a look at his results. As we said before, he'd finished third and second in the opening race or pair of races at Adelaide, and his other two podiums before tonight were Phillip Island and the Bend. And a lot of those races he was very loose and very sideways, and I guess not as in control as what we've seen him tonight. Probably the best two races we've seen Higginson put together in a night's work. The only question mark that we've got to get an answer to, which we probably won't get it tonight, is what happened at turn 2 on lap 1. We might get it tonight. We'll see how we go. We'll see if there's any contact or any situation that might need to be looked at. I'm sure he'll give us the goss on it, whether or not it was his own fault or whether he got a little bit of a love tap somewhere along the line. But it's not, unfortunately, going to change the result as it stands.
Well, Shannon Wright doing Shannon Wright things and bringing it home in P1.
Yeah, I keep remarking that this guy is like the old Berger paint set. He just keeps on keeping on, just keeps doing whatever he keeps doing. His record win streak obviously was snapped tonight. It's snapped at 6 by Nathan Higginson, but he bounces back and he will greet the checkered flag in race 2 and put another 50 points in the bank and another 88 points overall for the night towards his championship challenge. So he keeps Higginson at bay and doesn't concede any more ground in the title race.
Fantastic night from Nathan Higginson. Fastest lap on I think it's the second, and then P1 and P2. Lewis, really nice week, and 2 P3s for his first outing. That's a fantastic result from Lewis as well. Brett in P4, Jamie in P5, and John and Dylan 6th and 7th respectively, a lap down.
So we look through so we look through the results here, and the only difference or differences rather between the two races, Shannon Wright and Nathan Higginson swapping positions, and the only other person who swapped positions was Dylan Call, came up to position 7, having finished 8th in race 1, due to and John Wright actually moving up from 7th to 6th, with Ozrob unfortunately not finishing this one. And likewise, Lime Mitch, who didn't start the first race, has not finished in race number 2. And
some celebratory skids from involved.
Because it's all about destroying tyres and it's all about doing doughies. And yet again, those tyres have popped.
Now I swear he pops them tyres so quickly. He's probably in 6th gear. Lewis flashing the lights, doing some doughies.
Now these are donuts. These are beautifully consistent donuts. Have a look at the concentric circles as we go, and he's just ruined it.
Oh, Lewis, why are you gonna do this?
I was just looking at it going, there's some nice circle work going on there. It's a nice little tornado type spiral, and then we put him on the camera and he ruins it.
Yeah. Look at Nathan sending it in the background.
I think they're going to have to get a flatbed to tow that truck. Ooh, and a little bit of...
They're going to need more than a flatbed to get that thing back.
Yeah, I think they're going to need the jaws of life to extract him out of that car, I think. That's the way that he's going.
Because he doesn't want to exit.
Because he won't want to get out the car. That's precisely right. You followed where I was going with that one, mate. Job well done.
Thank you.
All right, and now we wait for a little bit, and we'll see if we can get our race winner for this week's race 2 and this week's race 1 into the booth to have a little chat. And we already had a little bit of a chat with Lewis Wedding after all that one, but we've got him here, and he's awaiting the others to come down. So let's have a talk to Lewis about your second race in that one. And Lewis, you a pair of podiums, not a bad result for the night, but you had a bit of fun out there.
Yeah, I had a bit of fun. The start of this race is a bit interesting, going into turn 1 and through turn 1, 2 and 3 and all that stuff. managed to survive all that stuff, all the shenanigans down there, and then it was all about trying to cruise down Ozrob. He was really quick at the start of the race. Couldn't quite get him, so I thought I'd, after overheating the rears, I was just like, yeah, I'll try undercut him and see how I went.
Now, it looked like you were one of the earlier stoppers in that second race, and towards the end of the second race, you were sort of throwing the car around a little bit. Was that just an effort to make lap time, or were you struggling just to control the rears a little bit as the race wore on?
Um, no, I don't think outside of I had a spin at the second last corner with like 2 or 3 laps to go or something like that. But outside of that, I mean, I wasn't really trying to overdrive the car or anything. I think it was just more getting a little bit of extra confidence in the car and just wanting to, have more of a dip. So went out there, could trust the car a little bit more, having driven them a bit more, and yeah, let it slide a bit.
Well, you had a bit of fun, and you did did pretty well at considering, and fought on and boxed on really well all night, especially with Brett Willis in race one. So, job well done, mate, and look forward to catching up with you again for more of this on the other side of the new year.
Yeah, no worries, mates, and obviously thanks to the boys for letting me come in and race. And just remember, go Hans.
Absolutely, go Hans, because that's what it's all about.
And hashtag Rhodium.
And hashtag Rhodium. Well, that's a common theme starting to appear on my streams, and I'll have to start getting a bit more of a tension, I think, on what's going on there. Well, let's.
Got faster my car in it.
Well, the two remaining drivers that are in here with us had split the wins and split the second places this week, and well, Nathan, your first race win, and probably one of the most complete nights we've seen you put together all season long. You've got to be proud of that one.
Definitely. Considering it's my first win in anything, anywhere, I did watch the stream during the break, and I heard that you were saying get ready for the sideways action, and you weren't wrong. As soon as I crossed the line, I got down to the bottom of turn one and just lit them up. I felt that the car was completely dialed in. I started a lot earlier on a setup than I usually would, and I became heaps more comfortable with the car, just consistent practice laps, and especially during the race, especially during the second race, just trying to chase down Shannon, just putting in qualifying lap after qualifying lap to close that gap, and yeah.
And Nathan, I have a question before. What was your reaction when you got the 11.7? Or even 11.9?
I was genuinely surprised that the VL had the pace, that kind of pace in it, especially around here. There was a couple of times I got the estimate. The estimate was down to a high 210, and I didn't really want to chase a 210 just in case I did make a mistake from overdriving it. But I just wanted to make sure I was being as fast and as consistent as possible to chase down Shannon.
Yeah.
Well, the one trick that I think you might have missed in that second race there, Nathan, is when Shannon dived in for an earlier pit stop. And at that point in time, when you took the race lead, the gap was about 33, 34 seconds. And by the time you came in for your stop, it was down to about 26. And you had a lot more ground to make up with a lot less laps on the clock than if you otherwise would have if you had have reacted to the stop. So I guess you looked at it from the point of view of what worked for race one probably would work for you in race two, but maybe not the case this time around.
Yeah, especially with the spin at the start of race two. If I didn't have that bit of a mistake in the start of race two, I definitely would have been in with a bit of a better chance of chasing him down for that top spot.
Okay, so that answers, I guess, the last question on our radar of the spin at turn one. That your own fault in that one.
Yeah, just got on the gas a bit early. Just trying to. I guess it was just a bit of all the adrenaline and excitement of trying to split the BMWs going into turn one. I guess I just got on the loud pedal a bit too early as usual, and yeah, just. It went round, tried to save it, and I guess if I hadn't have saved it and just gotten off the throttle, I might have been able to keep going. But you get caught up in the heat of the moment, and it just you don't realise what happens until your butt's in the fence. But if I didn't have that spin start of race 2, it would have been a much better chance of chasing him down for the top spot.
Well, a first and a second on the night in your first win. I wouldn't be complaining with that. And job well done, mate. It is a very good night.
Return to the form that I was hoping I would have.
Well, hold your head up.
It wouldn't be. Yeah. So Nether, go.
You know, hold your head up high there, mate. We'll let you go and celebrate your wins.
You.
Job well done.
Thanks, mate.
It wouldn't be an ACADS ATCC race without a sideways VL.
It certainly would not. And our championship leader, I'm sure, by that little cheeky giggle, agrees with that.
Yeah.
Shannon, bit of a mixed bag for you tonight. The one part that I looked at with the differences between your first race and your second race is your start in race 2 was much, much better than race 1. Looked like you missed the start in race 1. Talk us through that.
Mate, I think I'm a victim of my own will. I work in suspension, so I thought, you know what, I'm going to go full tank, hardened suspension, mate. The car was just a dog to drive, Couldn't get the turn in, couldn't get the brake. I felt like I was over-driving it, and yeah, mate, hats off to Higginson, you drove a great race. All
right, so that explains, I guess, why you had the bad start in race 1, but then in race 2, I guess you probably thought about what you'd done and smartened it up a little bit.
Mate, I went back to the setup I had. I should have started with it.
Yep, I think Dano may have called that pretty perfectly, that there might have been a few adjustments to be made between the two races to make that happen. But you did have a little bit of a fight on your hands, but you did fight your way through the field in both races after recovering in race 1 and starting rear of grid, obviously, in race 2 with the reverse grid format. But you kept it clean. And you didn't lose any ground, but you didn't gain any ground tonight either over Nathan.
Yeah, I think it was just more or less, once I realised what sort of speed Nathan had, it was just more or less just staying consistent, not overheating it, and trying not to overdrive it, because once you overdrive this thing, you just start losing time, so it actually cost you more when you're going too hard, so just trying to stay consistent as I could.
Well, you head into the Christmas break with a 119-point advantage, and 5 rounds still to go. So we'll look forward to seeing you on the other side of the new year, mate.
Thanks, mate. And Dane missed you, mate. It would have been awesome out there.
Well, if I had a wheel, I would have showed up. But,
But hey, Lewis did an awesome job tonight. It was great racing with him. It was good to see him on the other side of the microphone.
Yep, definitely. Good to see him back out there. Good to see that we're blooding a bit of youth here out we're broadcasting. Dane Liccardo getting a little bit of an opportunity to fill the void with Lewis. We gave Lewis the dispensation to have the night off, and he did a great job. Before we go, just a reminder that this is the round that brings us to a close before we pick it up on the other side of Christmas and the New Year. So we've got 5 rounds remaining. So with a bit of luck, Calder Park will be up on the 9th of January, followed by Sandown, Lakeside, Winton and Newcastle. But first and foremost, Dane, congratulations on your maiden broadcast here with occupying the box next to me. I think you've done remarkably well, mate. You got better as the night went on.
Thank you, Nick. Heather?
All good. And to all of you watching at home, please join us in a week and a half for the last round of the AMS Oz Supercars Championship. But if you're not able to tune in for that one, please have a very Merry Christmas and a safe and Happy New Year. And we'll see you in 2021 for more Assetto Corsa Aussie Down Under series. Please drive safely. Bye for now.